Okay, so I think we all have the Z notes. They are like pretty popular. I remember who recommended Z notes to me the very first time, but ever since I've known about them, I've been using them, and they are very effective, I would say. Am I audible?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I'm connecting with my laptop. I'm setting up the WhatsApp desktop so I can join the meeting.
Yeah, I was saying I can like zoom in and then you can discuss about, but what are the points that you want to discuss about, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Well, I feel like this chapter, like I have discussed it with my teachers, with my friends from the school, and what I have concluded about this chapter, about the specifically about the hardware chapters, that it's not that much important for the exam, and the maximum question mark question that we will get it will be a 4 mark question or 2 mark question, and basically it's about the microphones, speakers, scanners, or printer, and that's basic or embedded system. That's the basic of this chapter. As for the logic gates, they are the same thing. Well, I have done some past papers, and I have noticed that the maximum mark question that comes is like 6 marks question, and that's a trace table and to draw the logic circuit. So I think if someone have the difficulty in understanding how to build a logic circuit or how to create a logic statement from a given logic circuit, or he does not understand the working of microphone, or what is the embedded system, or what is all of that, I think we need to explain that to them instead of like going through all of the points. Because for example, what is a hard disk, the working of a hard disk, solid state drive, or how the NAND chips are used and all of that. I don't think that's so much important because well, we know the basic, what is RAM, what is ROM, and all of that, but we can just go through the points once, like what's the EEPROM and yeah, EEPROM and all of that.
Right. Okay, that was pretty helpful, but I couldn't hear you because my laptop speaker is like pretty like the worst of the worst kinds. So yeah, but I think that like you've explained it well. And yeah, I am also like using these notes, and basically the approach that I'm using for preparing for this chapter is just by like practicing everything that's written on here, like understanding every point, and making sure that when I understand it, then I just put a like tick mark, or if I don't understand something from it, then watch a video. But in the group, someone had shared the videos as well, like the whole playlist, and I calculated its watch length. So it's like 18 to 19 hours long. So if you have 6 days remaining, then you divide the total watch time into like three, and then you would get like 3 hours per day. Yeah, the reason why I'm more supportive of video lectures instead of reading books is because like some people may not understand it the way that the book intends you to understand it. Like sometimes like the teacher is better, like can better explain you the diagram, or the complexity behind that diagram that you're seeing. And there will be some topics which you might think that you understand well, but without assistance from an actual experienced person, you may not understand. So yeah, that's like put more emphasis on learning from videos and learning from someone who's actually qualified, um, instead of just memorizing about it.
Well, I will completely agree with you. I think that it is the best source for learning than the books, because books are just like dead.
Like
I don't know what should I call them, dead teachers or something like that. But what I want to say, I want to explain is that to be honest, I have a mathematics paper, a mathematics P1 on 5th of March, sorry, 5th of May, and on 6th of May, I have the computer paper. So I'm not preparing that much for the computer sciences. And what I think is that the book and the syllabus actually focuses on the things that are not asked on the papers. if you can, for example, if you even attempt a one single paper, you will notice that there is not so many questions about the hardware, not even the logic circuit, not even the chapter one and the chapter two, which seems to be so much difficult, which have so many definitions, WNIC, NIC cards, and all of that. We only get a single question about that. That's like 2 or 3 marks, and that's all of it that we get from these chapters. So I don't think that's too much important. And like as you said that you are going through the videos trying to learn that what actually is the how actually does it work. Well, I think it's better. It's good to learn things and all of that. But as you're saying that you have very less time remaining, so I think the only thing that you need to understand are the like basic points. For example, for the microphone, you need to understand that there is a diaphragm, there is a motor that rotates in the magnetic field that produces electrical current, and that electrical current that is then converted into binary digits. That's actually the complete knowledge that you need for the microphone. Because if you're going into detail, it's better for your knowledge, but not for the exam. I don't think so that you need to understand all of its working just for the exam, because at the end, after you will get out of the hall, after attempting the exam, you will say that I just wasted all of my time in all of that struggle because they didn't ask me that question. So I don't think that you need to go in that much depth.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I'm actually repeating CS because the first time I gave paper one, it was although I thought that my paper went extremely great, but because I had used the blue book, which is like very devilish, like it makes you think that you've understood the whole CS, but when you like attempt the paper, then there are like very minute things that you would have understood better if you were using notes. And Z notes were also much comprehensive than the whole 200 or 300 page book that I read. So I don't know what's it like with paper like textbooks of A levels. They're so complicated, and instead of like teaching you the content like in a simplified way, they give you all these descriptions which never are really gonna come in the paper, I guess. So that's
Well, I think the
my
purpose
thought.
for that is because Cambridge, the intention of Cambridge is not just like, for example, to make us memorize. For example, you know that there is a metric system and both the A level system in the Pakistan, and the metric
Yeah,
system is more based on, like, for example, memorizing stuff and not knowing and understanding stuff. So if there is a book where everything is written in detail and you can use that, you can memorize that and use in your exams, I don't think that person would go to a teacher and understand the concepts of the, for example, the devices of things. When they're making the book so much complex for us to understand and for us to memorize, we move towards the teachers that I don't understand it. Can you provide me a simplified and a compressive way of understanding that? Because A levels and O levels is all about learning stuff and understanding stuff instead of memorizing stuff and instead of
yeah.
able to answer the question that they are going to ask, because you don't know what they are going to ask. There is a possibility that they are going to ask about something that you don't have even studied. Because I remember in O level there were questions in the past paper that I never have even read about in the books. My teacher didn't told me about that, and they were asking about those, and I just had to use my common sense, or you can say like uh, combine my learning about that and answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't use math textbooks anymore, although they seem very helpful, especially the Oxford ones that I got. And I thought that this is going to save my grade. I practiced several questions from it. Yeah, I mean, it's more about learning the concept, and the teachers are much more like better options than the textbooks because it also depends on your understanding level. And, a teacher will better like teach you the concepts and all. And notes are, I think they are just for reference. Like you need to like learn from a professional. They're just like things that you should know in your mind when you are like attempting the whole paper, and they're not exhaustive. Like there are topics that you can add into it. So yeah, I get that. And also,
Well, yes, you're right,
I've
and
heard that in the SCT book as well. Someone had told me that they actually, the Cambridge doesn't want you to get grades because if you start getting A stars, then they wouldn't be able to conduct exams. I've heard this kind of theory. So they intentionally make their books a bit more complex so that, you cannot easily get a grade. Maybe I've just heard that theory. If anyone agrees.
Yes, I think it's possible because the whole purpose of Cambridge of conducting all these exams and all of this syllabus is not just to, for example, get ourselves grades or get ourselves degrees, but it is more like of the understanding, making us understand about stuff and all of that. And
Yeah,
I shouldn't say this, but what I think about, for example, computer sciences teachers specifically, in Pakistan or at least in Faisalabad, from those whom I have studied, I have learned that most of them are either software developer or software engineers,
mhm.
and they are more like a practical person than they are a teacher, and they are not so much great in explaining things to us. For example, if you are studying P1 from a teacher from I studied from a teacher who is a software engineer. He has a software house in Faisalabad, and he's like a good programmer, and he has also motivated me to learn programming. But when I am studying P1 from him, it's more like he don't have interest in that, or maybe he don't know how to teach well about that. And I think that's a problem with the computer science. We don't have that much great teachers. Like for the mathematics, for the physics, for the chemistry in my school, there's certain excellent teacher that I didn't have to like even touch the book whole of the semester, and I still got good grades. But as for the computer science, I had to
Yeah.
open the book, I had to explore through the notes, I had to do past paper, and still I have some theories, some queries that still aren't resolved, and I can't resolve them, and I'm just carrying on it and thinking that it won't come in the
Yeah, I mean it's the way that the teachers, like, maybe their teachers are not to blame, but the subject is itself is very, I mean, queer, in a sense that, like, you don't know how to even start the syllabus and you don't know how to finish it, and in the middle there are like some things, like some gaps that you try to fill, and then like it's a very, I would say it's trying to test your logic, reasoning and understanding abilities, but at the very, like, it has its own limitations as well. Like the curriculum has its own limitations, and even though you're trying your best to, like, bridge the gap, but the teachers understanding and the way the teachers teach you, like, sometimes isn't really the most effective way to, like, to to just bridge the gap, honestly. Yeah, I,
Well, I
I mean,
think
I never
the
had this
Cambridge
much.
don't have. Well, I think the Cambridge don't have much experience with this subject, because if you are going with other subjects, for example, chemistry, physics, mathematics, you will find
Mhm.
that it is easy to understand their criteria that what they are asking. But for the computer science, you don't get a thing. I remember
Yeah.
in the O levels, there were questions, for example, for example, the storage can be affected, how the security breach and all of that. And I would be
Mhm.
writing some detailed information and answer about that. And when I would go to the marking scheme, the answer would be floods and fireworks. Floods and fire. How could that be an answer? And that doesn't make sense. So I think
Yeah.
it's more of the Cambridge problem that they are not so much, adjusted with this subject, and it's a new subject. And they have just
And
converted
they're
from the 90
yeah
paper to
and
90.
they're yeah, and they're making a practical paper separate, and paper 2, because paper 2 is like even more difficult than paper 4. Like paper 4 is simple
Yes.
programming, and you can use Pascal, you can use any language, Python, sorry, not Pascal. You can use any language to just easily, I think they should have added paper 4 as paper 2, like, and then paper 2 in the end, because by creating programs, you develop the ability to write pseudocodes, because pseudocode is
Well,
programming. And yeah,
I would disagree on this point. I would agree that maybe P2 should not be there. Like maybe they
yeah,
could include a P2, but I can't agree with the point that maybe the P4 in the A level and P2 in the A2, because there's a problem. Like I learned Python before I came to the A level, so I was
uh,
like quite good in the Python. And when I started to learn pseudocode, I had quite problem with the syntax and all of that, because pseudocode anything makes sense. In the Python, you have a like source code, you have a syntax and all of that. So it's difficult to understand a pseudocode when you have already understood the Python. But the sole purpose of the pseudocode, what the people say that it is used to, translate program into other languages. I don't think it's useful, and I don't think they should teach this thing, the pseudocode and all of that. But I talked to my teacher, and he said that pseudocode had a low threshold. So what you need to do is to have a grip on the last questions that has the modules and all of that. Because if you can attempt that, you can attempt all the remaining of the paper. And for the first 2 and 3 questions, you need to make sure that you score full marks in those, and the remaining you can just try to get the maximum score and all of that, and you can have a better grip on the P1. But as for my teacher, he
Yeah,
says that P2 is more easier than P1. Although I agree
yeah.
with that, but
Mhm.
it's like we are not much being, I don't think, a practice or something like that, that we don't have much experience with the P2, like understanding programs and building those.
Yeah, I get that. Like, basically, no one really prepares the last two questions of paper two. Like, they try to prepare, but they are just too difficult. Like, when you sit for paper two paper, you would realize, like, I remember last time they gave this question in like paper two, and it was so difficult, and it was nothing that I've ever even read about it, even in notes and textbooks. So that's the level of complexity there. It's like you are doing a PhD paper of computer science while being in A levels. So yeah, I get that. It's very important to maximize your score in paper one because it's quite easier. Paper two is easier, but there's this skill that you need to write pseudocodes, and there are like some questions in pseudocode paper two which are easily solvable, but like the last two questions and some questions which really require your critical thinking, and also it's extremely difficult to get full marks in paper two, I would say. Like it's
Well, the
as far easier in mechanics, as far as in prob and stats, as far as in pure maths, I would say. But the computer science paper two thing is like so frustrating, I would say. Yeah.
yes, it's frustrating because of the fact that it's difficult to understand what they're asking the question. For example, once
Yeah.
you read the marking scheme, you know what actually they're asking, and if you reattempt the question, it's pretty easy. But what they make there by showing us the modules, by showing us that that lengthy question and all of that, it really makes me frustrated. It really makes me confused about program. I would say that if they just told me that we need a program that needs to do this and that, and just make
Mhm.
that program, it would be easier to make either to the pseudocode or Python. But when they are including those modules, like you have to use those modules and you have to implement those in your program, that actually make it more frustrating and more confusing. But and as you said that there is nothing relevant data about making programs like that in the notes. They tell us about the bubble sort, they tell us about a linear sort, they don't even tell us that how to use the functions and all of that, that how they will, like a question will come and you have to use these modules and all of that. They don't teach us that. And even I took a question to my teacher and I asked him about that, how to solve this. Like there is this particular code, this line that I don't understand the purpose of this. And even he searched it on the internet. He searched it everywhere and he couldn't get the answer, and said that if I get the answer, I will provide it to you. But since this day, I haven't got the answer for that. So I think that what we need to do is, as you said, maximize our score in the P1. And as for the P2, maximize our score in the previous question, then the last one. And if you can get your last question great or good, I think we can easily score an A or A star. And the best thing about the computer science, well, I shouldn't say this, but the threshold is pretty low as compared to the other subjects, because out of 150, if you're getting a 90 on the 90, you're getting an A. I think that's pretty good. But as for the last year, like I have my friends in A2, they uh, told me that it was a pretty difficult paper, and the threshold was like no one was expecting this, because I know my friend, they were pretty good in computer science. Like they could easily get an A, but most of them scored B or C, because I don't know whether the paper was out of
Yeah.
the syllabus or something like that, but they couldn't
Yeah, in
score
my
much.
college, no one got an A in computer science, and we were like the throughout the year we were like it's such an easy paper and would be extremely easy to get an A, and we didn't even look up for paper two because I don't know, like we were in this paradigm of ours, and because 9618 is a completely different level of complexity as in comparison to 9608. Like if you compare the past paper questions of paper two with paper two of 9608 syllabus, they are much more complex. And yeah, we just had like I don't know, it was extremely difficult paper when we had it. Yeah, so Yeah, it's more about your practice, and it's also more about like bridging the gap of concepts. And like I think video lectures are really great way to do that, and also the effective notes that you have. But the thing is that there are simply two channels available for computer science. One is Paper's Talk, and the other is Zafar Ali Khan. The issue that I have with Zafar Ali Khan channel is that their videos are too lengthy, and he simply just explains it in a more of a qualitative form. Like the other, like if you compare Paper's Talk videos with his, Paper's Talk literally solves it all, and like they are much more interactive rather than the videos that he shares, and they're like so confusing. It's just like reading a textbook, and you cannot like watch 63 or 40 64 hours length of videos in just like 5 or 6 days. So that's the issue, that the reason one of the reasons why I don't watch videos on Zafar Ali Khan's channel. And Paper's Talk have excellent resources for Paper 2. Paper 3, they are like creating for Paper 3, but like still I mean I don't think that they would be able to complete Paper 3 on time. So I still don't know how to like do well in that paper. But you have your Z notes and you have YouTube, and I think those two will be much more like, I think they will be more than enough to make you prepare. So
Well, I think that we have a wrong mindset about the subject computer science. We think more difficult we make it by learning more stuff and thinking that we have to go into this detail and all of that. The more difficult the subject becomes, because the main purpose of this is the basic understanding of the computer sciences. Because if
yeah.
you are attempting a question, I would say this, that if you're attempting a question, and I'm like last time I studied for the computer science was like I completed my syllabus was in the stand-ups for the P1, and like it was in December. And
Mhm.
after that, when I was doing my P1 without even revising the syllabus for the P1 in the March, I was able to do the 80% of the paper, and then I realized that that subject is not difficult. It has a basic understanding and some of the
Mhm.
definition that you have to go through. So the
Mhm.
teachers are providing us the wrong path. I'm sorry to say that, but when you ask teacher, they are going to say that go and practice this, 9608 past papers. And when you will bring a questions about that, for example, you have that what is like for example special redundancy and all of that questions, they will say that for progressive encoding and all of that, and ask the teacher that is it in even syllabus or all of that, and he will say that it's not in syllabus, but it's better if you go through it. If it's better if you learn it, and it actually demotivate the students because they think that there is much more syllabus to cover in in the subject. Well, I would say that get a good grip in the bit manipulation, in the assembly language, in the first chapter that is about the number system and about the logic gates. And after that, a fetch execute cycle and the register, you should have great knowledge about that. And as for the AI, I would say I am like pretty damn sure, I am 95% sure there will a question. It will come of 6 marks or maybe 4 marks about the AI, that how it works, how we can use it, how we can implement this. And as for the ethics, as some people already said in the group, that it's like basic understanding. You just have to use some words like in the best interest of this and that, and you can go through that. And the remaining question, for example, like the hardware question, where the question how the microphone works, what is embedded system, what is the sensor, what is CMSAD, and what is the VAPs and WNIC and all of that. I think you just need to have some little understanding about that and go through it. The more
Yeah,
difficult you make the subject, the more difficult this is.
yeah, notes can provide that. Okay, so yeah, so people were asking me about the video lectures. So basically, this is the I think what I got from the WhatsApp group, and you can like watch these videos, but also you have your Z notes, and I think those are much better option because you have to save your time as well as others are having paper one, and I think paper four is like 4 days after, and paper five is like 2 days after paper four. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty hectic. And yeah,
They're giving all the components.
I, I am giving composite. I am actually like I have solid preparation for maths and physics, and I'm just like I was worried about like CS, like how I'm gonna like effectively prepare for it. But yeah, I found like my resources, and yeah, I'm gonna start doing preparation for it.
I'm gonna ask you this: do you have like interest in the computer science, like
I
in this
want to
computer
become a
field or
game
something?
developer. I want to become a game developer. I'm also like practicing programming in this software called Unity, and I'm also learning C programming. But I just couldn't like connect that with the CS syllabus because it's you have to write in a certain format, and the questions that the answers that they require, like I haven't read the examiner report, so I think I should read that because they wouldn't give you marks if you write answer in a slightly different way than they are expecting, and that's the thing which always cost me marks. So that's the issue. Otherwise, like I do have some basic knowledge about the content that is being tested, and yeah, it's just I don't know how to connect it, and that's I'm gonna focus on in the later in coming days. So yeah.
Well, then I think have you attempted your past papers? Like maybe attempt one or two past papers, and you know the way that you need to answer. Because what I did, I attempted some past papers, and
Mhm.
each question which I got wrong, for example, I didn't follow the way they wanted me to answer. I took a
Mhm.
screenshot of that question. I saved
Mhm.
it in my phone, and on the day of the exam, like one day before, I will go through all
Mhm.
of those screenshots to know that the basic criteria they want me to know. Because if the question come, for example, if they're gonna ask me that there was a question, specific question that I did a past paper I did today, they were asking about RAM and ROM. So I basically
Uh,
wrote that RAM is this, sorry, MAR and MDR. So I basically wrote that MAR is this register, MDR is this register. And when I opened the mark scheme, I literally got it wrong because they were asking me that how is MAR and how is MDR using the fetch execute cycle. I didn't understood the question completely because it was like uh, I just saw the MAR and
Yeah,
MDR and
redundancy
I did
does
that.
that. Like when questions are very repetitive, so you just
Yes,
yeah, you've already memorized.
that's the main problem because even in the examiner report, I have found that the basic question, for example, about this MDR and MAR, students have done this wrong. They will mention that most of the students had done this wrong. They didn't accept the what the question were asking them. So I think that being more pressurized during the exam is the main problem because
Yeah,
if you have the basic understanding about what is RAM, about what is ROM, about what is all of the hardware and all of that, and you have the key points about that, for example, even one or two words like
mhm,
which is going, for example, volatile and non-volatile for RAM and ROM. If you know these words, just use them, and you can easily score the marks. And one thing to make sure to keep in the mind is the number of marks that they are asking. For example, if there is a question of 4 marks, first of all, decide 4 points about that. If you can't, break your 1 point into 2 points and then write it down. Because if you're going to mention your 3 points in one sentence, they are going to award you 1 mark, and you will think that you didn't fulfill the criteria or the way they were asking. Well, your problem, your mistake was that you mentioned all of those 3 points into one question. Because if you're going to see the marking scheme, they are like forming different sentences that doesn't even make sense, but they are different sentences and they are marking, they are giving a mark on that sentences. For example,
uh,
if you're talking about wireless access points and you go to the mark scheme, encrypt data, decrypt data, receive packages and sends packages, well, that's I think that's common sense. If you know wireless access point and you just read it once, you can just write these 4 points and you can
mhm,
easily score the full marks. So I don't think that being so much focused on the books, on the notes,
mhm. Yeah,
is the main thing when questions answers
familiarize yourself with past paper questions. Like you don't have time to solve
is
all
the
of
question.
them, but if you like fully understand the theory, because it's a theory paper, we all know that. So it's just gonna test your basic understanding skills. I think it's more like SAT paper, like they test your reading skills. And I gave alums admission test as well. And in science aptitude test, they didn't really test any science content. They were just testing your basic understanding skills. So yeah, it's more of an understanding skills paper as well as some basic definitions that you have to learn and put. it there and know how to do some manipulation, just some mathematical reasoning and all. So yeah, it's pretty easy. So you just have to be aware of.
Well, have you attempted the 2000? Well, have you attempted the 2021 year past papers about the 961 and computer science?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm asking that 2021
Yeah.
9618. Have you attempted those past papers, or have students
I
in the
have
group have?
actually. I am just solving the recent year papers because because they are slightly different from the 9608 syllabus. And I don't do a lot of past papers, but if I do, then I do the most recent ones because it's more likely than questions from those are gonna come because they are like the from the
Well,
syllabus.
I would like to say, I would like to suggest to all of the computer science students to just do the 961 at this time. If you're doing 9608 for the start of the year, that's a completely different thing. And but for at this point, I would suggest you to do only 9618 because there are many
Mhm.
things in 960 what they are asking that not in the syllabus, and that is only
Yeah.
going to demotivate you, only going to make you think that I don't know syllabus and all of that. If you're going to through the 9618, you know what they're asking, you know what you need
Oh,
to prepare, and once go through the syllabus. When you will go through the syllabus, you will know what they are asking. You will find that there they are going to mention CM, like the collision. I don't remember the exact definition, exact term. Like it is like CSMA, CD, like collision detection of that and the device.
mhm.
So I didn't know that that was in the syllabus, and I have never read that in the book. And I found it once in a past paper, so I came to know that it was in the syllabus. I searched it up, and it only had like 2 lines, and it's also present in the Z notes. So once you are going to know that what's in the syllabus, it will make more easier for you to complete that paper. Because I remember in the O levels when I left the hall, I had my friends, and they were all saying that my paper I attempted is so good that I will be able to score 75 out of 75 marks. Like most of them were saying this. Like the minimum I heard on that day was like 72. Nobody said that I will be receiving like 55 marks. And when the result came, the threshold was 55 out of 75 for an A star, and many of them scored B. Some of them scored A star, and most of them scored B, A, or C. And the reason for that they didn't understood the criteria, they didn't understood the question. They just saw, okay, they are asking about the register and they're going to write the register. They don't see the main thing, the sensible things that you have to undermine. And if you are following that, I think it's a basic paper that you have to do, and you have to be more concerned about the P2 rather than P1, because I think P1 is more like you said, theory based question, and P2 requires more thinking, and you need to more mentally prepared for the P2. So if you are going to be stressed out about the P1, it's basically going to affect your P2, and it's going basically going to affect your all other subjects. Because if you are an AS student, we have like P2 and the physics both paper for the AS on the same day, like the morning and on the noon.
I have
So
composite, so you can understand my situation. But yeah,
yeah, that will be pretty difficult for you.
I'm just worried about, like, I was worried initially, but now I'm relaxed about it. Maths is like super, like my preparation for maths is going great. I'm so thankful for that because it took me a very long time to really understand how to do well in maths with all prob and math mechanics and so many difficult topics in it, and the level of questions, like difficulty level. So yeah. Okay, so I think the meeting is going to end. So it was just an answer and question session, and we tried to discuss about CS, and we did mention some resources that you can use to maximize your preparation for this particular chapter. Um, Thanks for joining me, Shafan, and yeah, let's see you in tomorrow's session, and we will try to ask other people as well to join this session. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a
Bye.
good day. Yeah. Uh, leave